It's another happy day here on the West Coast, and I'm back on the boat. Today we're going to take another crack at the fuel tank. Hopefully the epoxy project worked out okay and I can get that last bolt put in, and then I can start working on the exhaust system for the motor. Before I came here today, I went shopping. Everything related to a boat is redonkulously expensive, but fortunately I don't have that much more kit that I need to get before we can go sailing. But there are a few things. Let me show you. When I first bought the boat, I wanted to get insurance for it so that I would be covered when I was at the yacht club. And one of the requirements to get insurance, of course, is to have a boat survey done, which I did. One of the problems that the boat survey picked up on was the propane system. Propane system was in place and working, but it was kind of archaic and probably not safe. So today I went shopping for some propane bits. This is something that the boat didn't have, which is a propane alarm. Propane is great as far as being an efficient fuel. It's self-contained, it's ubiquitous, you can get it anywhere and everywhere, but the danger with it is that it's heavier than air. So if you get a leak, the propane will settle to the lowest point in the boat, which is the bilges and then the cabin sole. By the time you've got propane in your cabin sole, you've got an explosive situation on your hands, which is not good. So I have purchased a propane alarm just in case, and I have replaced basically all of the hoses and fittings necessary to run the propane stove. So pigtail from the tank to the new solenoid. Now the solenoid is electrically run and it's in a permanent off position until there's power to it. So that just makes good sense. I have a solenoid on board, but like I said, it's old and I don't trust it. So I'm replacing it. The next is a regulator. I have a regulator on board, but it's a single stage regulator and it's old and I don't trust it. So that's part two. Then we have a pressure gauge. Pressure gauge doesn't tell you how much fuel you've got in your tank. It shows you how much pressure you have in your line. So if you've got a leak, the pressure gauge will reveal it. It's another necessary part. Here we have the necessary fittings for all the bits and pieces, and a bracket for this guy, because that'll have to be mounted inside the propane locker. Propane locker is at home right now. I took it home years ago to just keep it out of the way here on the boat. There's so much stuff when you're in a construction zone. I just like having a clean environment to work in. So the next parts that I got was down at the diesel engine shop, and I learned something really useful. This is an oil sender, and this is a heat alarm. When I brought the boat here from the island, my heat alarm kept on going off, and I was checking the gauges on the instrument panel, and it was saying about 180 degrees, which is a little warm, but it's certainly not overheating for the motor. It's a diesel engine after all. And it stayed right at 180. It never went above that, and it didn't matter whether it was running full RPMs or low RPMs, it just stayed right there. So I thought, nah, something else is wrong. When I was working on the fuel tanks, I inadvertently smashed the alarm sender. So I went down to the diesel shop today. I went to a place that specifically sells Izu Diesels, which is the make of the engine that I've got. And the parts service guy there said that if you overheat your engine, the alarm, it doesn't bake, it doesn't stop working, but what it does is every time you overheat the engine, it lowers the point at which the alarm will trigger. So this one is alarmed to trigger at 210 degrees Fahrenheit. The engine runs at 180. So it would explain why I was getting false positive alarms. If the engine had overheated before, and each time it overheated, the switch was getting lower and lower, it basically wouldn't matter what temperature the engine was at. As soon as it warmed up, it would be alarming. The same goes for the oil sender. This is an oil sender. And apparently if your heat alarm goes, it's very likely that your oil cylinder will go too. So I haven't had a problem with it, but I'm going to replace it anyways, just because if that's the way they're manufactured, then it probably needs to be replaced. They're expensive. This guy, the heat alarm was $60, and this guy here was, the oil cylinder was $50. So I'm going to put off installing the propane stuff and the cylinders for now until I get the tank job finished, which I'm going to start with right away, because I just got that one bolt, and then I'm going to start putting the exhaust system back in. Once that's back in place, then I'll worry about the cylinders on the engine, and then I'll get going on the propane parts. So that's my agenda for today. Maybe we can go sailing. It's not May yet, but I'm so close. I need to get some diesel fuel in my jerry cans and put some in the tanks and see if we can't get this old beastie fired up again. I'm looking forward to that. I bet you are too. You must be sick of watching these videos. I know I'm sick of making them. All right, stay tuned. Well, I got the last bolt in the fuel tank. It had its challenges. I dropped the bolt because it's in such a awkward spot, and it ended up behind the tank. Now, of course, you can't get anything behind the tank. You can't reach behind it to grab it or anything. So, fortunately, Mr. Magnet was able to save the day. There's enough iron in the bolt to be able to move it back along the tank, and then I could grab it with my fingers. So, got the bolt in finally. I ended up putting a little bit of Lanacoat, which is kind of thick and sticky, in the socket, or actually around the head of the bolt and then in the socket, and that way I was able to start the bolt and then send it home with the ratchet. So that's done. I think the fuel tank project is complete. That's a red letter day for me. Oh yeah. I also reinstalled the fuel return. When I looked at it when I was under there, it looked like I hadn't pushed the hose far enough onto the fuel barb, and the clamp was actually behind the barb, so it was tightening on nothing. So I undid the clamp, pushed the hose as far as it would go on the barb, and then tightened up the clamp. So that job has been done. I also clipped in the transmission lever. Over the months that I've been working on the fuel tanks and putting the tanks in and out, there's 2 clips on a bar that a rod passes through. So I repositioned that rod, put the clips back in place, and so now that's done. So what I'm going to do now is to reinstall the exhaust system. I'm going to start with the water lock. That's just a matter of 4 bolts, and then I am going to hook up the actual exhaust hose itself, which is basically just a matter of hose clamps. 4 minutes to 1 o'clock, and I have made some serious dents in a lot of projects. So I'm going to get busy with that, and I'll report back when I've got more information for you. I've made some really good progress today. I've got the tank project completed. All the fittings are in, all the bolts are in. I've managed to reinstall part of the exhaust system. The water lock is in place, and I've got it ready to install the new exhaust hose. One little snag. The hose that I bought, I asked for 1.5 inch exhaust hose, and that's what they gave me. It's 1.5 inch, but they didn't specify that it had to be 1.5 inch inside diameter. So they gave me 1.5 inch outside diameter, which will not work. This is the last fitting elbow before the exhaust goes out overboard, and you can see that the inside of this is 1.5 inch. The outside is 1 5/8. So I'm not sure what I need to ask for when I pick up new hose, but I gotta get new hose. But I'm making pretty good progress here. Like I said, I think I'm going to put the heat alarm sensor in, the new one that I bought. This is the old sensor here, and the part that broke used to stick out about 1 inch, and then these wires plugged into it. So you can see why I didn't want to replace it too soon, right? With the tanks and tools and me jumping in and out all the time. This makes a very handy step. The transmission is a good step, and the bell housing here is a good step, and that thing is just asking to be stepped on and crunched. So I didn't want to do it too soon. I think I'm going to do it right now. Just like that, it's done. Fortunately, that wasn't a particularly difficult project. I'm going to have to put new connecting ends on the wires that attach to that. It used to have a quick connect spade terminal. I'm going to put loops on it. But other than that, that job is now complete. Here's the old fender. No garbage. $60 worth of garbage.